a TV documentary starring Chef Auguste Gusteau, the best restaurant owner in Paris and the youngest chef to obtain a 5-star rating in France. He also wrote a popular cookbook with the motto, "Anyone can cook," which proudly carries his name. Remy the rat starts off with a monologue about his life. Remy claims he has improved taste and smell senses, which causes him to be extremely picky about what he consumes. When Remy demonstrates that he can smell rat poison in or near food, Emile, Remy's brother, is impressed, but their father Django, the colony's leader, is unconcerned. Django assigns Remy to sniff and test food for the rest of the clan. Remy is annoyed that the rats must steal food from the garbage. He would rather go to the kitchen and take the fresh samples. But Django, who despises and fears humans, forbids Remy and the rest of the clan from interacting with them. Despite his father's orders, Remy spends several nights in the home of an elderly lady, Mabel, where the rats have colonized, reading Chef Gusteau's cookbook and watching cooking-related television programs. He quickly advanced to near-expert status in food preparation. Remy takes Emile into the kitchen one day to get some spices to go with the other food samples they've gathered. Emile is hesitant, but agrees to accompany his brother. Remy observes Gusteau on television while he is inside and listens in, but he soon discovers that Anton Ego, a well-known food critic with a reputation for having ruthlessly high standards, gave Gusteau's restaurant a less-than-perfect review, causing the establishment to lose one of its 5 stars. Gusteau, who was grieving, passed away shortly after, and as is customary, another star was lost. Remy accidentally wakes Mabel, who attempts to kill him and Emile with a shotgun while reacting to the news of Gusteau's death. They manage to avoid her, but the house's roof is shot several times and collapses, exposing the entire rat colony. Django orders everyone to leave, but Remy remains behind to retrieve Gusteau's book. The rats escape into a river on miniature rafts. Remy uses the cookbook as a flotation device, but is separated from the rest of the group by a strong current in the source. Remy waits for his friends and family for hours while reading a cookbook. Remy starts to have hallucinations that the cartoon version of Chef Gusteau is speaking to him due to a combination of grief, loneliness, and hunger. Gusteau exhorts Remy to ascend through the soars and discover his current location. Remy makes his way through a number of pipes before realizing he is in Paris, right in front of Gusteau's restaurant. Inside Gusteau's, Skinner, the new head chef, meets Alfredo Linguini, the son of Chef Gusteau's recently deceased old flame, Renata. Linguini gives Skinner a letter written by his mother in the hopes of getting a job at the restaurant. He is assigned the role of plongeur, or garbage boy, and is immediately put to work. Remy notices Linguini unintentionally tipping over a pot of soup and making an effort to hide it by adding random ingredients as he monitors the activity in the kitchen. Remy panics and unintentionally enters the restaurant through the skylight because he knows the mixture Linguini has created would be disastrous. He attempts to flee through an open window but is unsuccessful after smelling the soup. Outraged, he adds his own ingredients to the mixture. However, motivated by a vision of Gusteau, continues to prepare the soup. However, Linguini catches him and imprisons him beneath a bowl before anyone else notices him. Skinner notices Linguini allegedly tampering with the soup and chews him out, but he is powerless to stop the wait staff from serving the soup. Céline Leclerc, a food critic, is served a bowl of the concoction, which she enjoys. Skinner still wants to fire Linguini, but another chef, Colette Tattoo, defends him, stating that firing him for making something a customer liked would go against the restaurant's mantra and have a negative impact on their reputation. Skinner gives in and lets Linguini stay. Remy tries to flee again, but Skinner notices him this time, and Linguini is able to capture Remy in a jar. Skinner commands Linguini to remove and kill the rat. Linguini brings Remy to a river, but he is unable to kill the rat. Linguini is aware that Skinner will anticipate a recipe replication because he believes the rat was the one who actually created the soup. Linguini brings the rat home and effectively adopts him after noticing that Remy can seem to understand him. Linguini notices the next morning that Remy, whom he has nicknamed Little Chef, has apparently stolen food and fled, but has actually cooked breakfast for them both, which is short-lived when Linguini notices that they are late for their first day. Linguini tries to find a way to have Remy cook without anyone else seeing when they arrive at the restaurant. They discover, after a few tries, that Remy can manipulate Linguini like a puppet by pulling on the boy's hair. Linguini and Remy decide that this is their best method and spend the next few days practicing cooking in their spare time. They quickly succeed in recreating the soup that caught the critics' eye to perfection. Colette is chosen by Skinner to instruct Linguini in the finer nuances of haute cuisine. Since Colette is the only female chef and put a lot of effort into getting to where she is, she initially dislikes the task and sees Linguini as a potential danger to her standing. Skinner meets with an agent later that evening. We learn that Skinner has been profiting since Chef Gusteau's passing by licensing the Gusteau name and reputation to a line of low-cost frozen foods. After reading the letter from Linguini's mother for a moment, Skinner becomes alarmed and makes a lawyer call. The attorney explains that according to Gusteau's will, Skinner will receive the restaurant if there isn't an heir after 2 years, which will have passed in less than a month. According to the letter from Linguini's mother, since Linguini is Gusteau's son, he is entitled to be the successor. The attorney advises conducting a DNA test as well as a background check, but Skinner doesn't buy it. Colette starts teaching Linguini the finer points of cooking, and they start to get along. Remy is also paying close attention. One night, a group of guests, sick of ordering Linguini's soup time and time again, asks the head waiter Mustafa about what is new. The staff is terrified, but Skinner decides to have Linguini prepare an old Gusteau-style sweetbreads recipe. Skinner is aware that Gusteau deemed that recipe a disaster, and he hopes that it will be Linguini's undoing. Colette begins to follow the recipe, but Linguini, under Remy's influence, drastically alters it, which enrages her. However, Mustafa bursts in a few minutes later and declares that the customers love the new concoction and that there are several more orders for it. Later that evening, the other chefs toast Linguini's success. Knowing about Remy, Skinner invites Linguini into his office and pulls out a bottle of rare 61 Chateau Latour in an attempt to persuade Linguini to reveal his secrets, but he is unsuccessful. Remy, who is outside taking a break, notices a strange person in the trash cans. When he realizes it's his brother Emile, he is shocked. Thrilled, Remy rushes inside to snatch some supplies so he may cook his brother dinner. Emile then transports Remy to the brand new colony. While Django is delighted to see his second son alive, he becomes enraged when Remy indicates he wants to leave the colony and return to Linguini. Remy reveals that he's observed humans and discovered that they're not as bad as Django made them out to be. Django, however, insists that humans and rats must always be enemies and takes Remy to a storefront that specializes in rat killing. Remy, though, has a different viewpoint. He departs the settlement and returns to Linguini. Remy discovers Linguini still working in the restaurant the following morning, worn out from spending the previous night cleaning. He observes Colette pulling in and puts on a pair of sunglasses to cover Linguini's sleepiness. Colette smacks Linguini after becoming irritated with him for what she perceives to be his use of her counsel to impress and gain Skinner's favor. She tells a now awake and surprised Linguini that she thought he was different from the other chefs and that she had romantic feelings for him, then storms out. Linguini tries to confess his secret to Colette in an attempt to apologize, but Remy, desperate to keep his secret hidden, forces Linguini forward, causing him to kiss Colette. After a few seconds of hesitation, she reciprocates, and the two form a relationship. Meanwhile, Anton Ego is in his study when he learns of Gusteau's resurgence from his butler. He is stunned and vows to return to find out what is going on. Skinner's lawyer returns to confirm Skinner's worst nightmare. Linguini is, in fact, Gusteau's son. Skinner decides not to tell Linguini and lets the will's deadline, which is only 3 days away, pass, after which he can fire Linguini with no repercussions. Later that night, Linguini rides her motorcycle with Colette, leaving Remy behind. He comes across Emile and a few other rats outside the restaurant. Remy is irritated that Emile snitched on him and goes inside to get food to keep the other rats from informing the rest of the colony. He sneaks into Skinner's office to get the key to the food locker and discovers and reads the documents describing Linguini's parentage in the process. Remy attempts to steal the documents, but Skinner spots him fleeing again. Remy escapes despite a thorough pursuit, and Linguini discovers the truth. Skinner is fired, Linguini takes over as restaurant manager, and the Gusteau frozen food line is halted. Linguini tries to explain his genius without exposing Remy at a press conference a few days later, much to the chagrin of the latter. Anton Ego then walks in and introduces himself to Linguini, promising to return the following night to review Gusteau's. Linguini complains to Remy after the conference about how he's losing focus and, in his growing arrogance, decides to work without Remy's assistance. Remy, enraged, organizes the rest of his rat clan to raid the restaurant that night. Linguini finds out and throws all the rats out, including Remy, warning him not to come back or else he'll be treated the way restaurants are supposed to treat pests. Remy withdraws into the darkness, defeated. Emile discovers Remy near the restaurant that evening, observing Linguini's poor leadership. Emile then tries to grab a suspiciously placed piece of cheese, but Remy notices that it's a trap and is caught while attempting to save him. Skinner, it turns out, set the trap because he wants Remy to work for him creating new frozen foods. Ego enters the restaurant and, rather than ordering from the menu, challenges the chef to hit or him with your best shot. Skinner, eager to see the downfall of Linguini, asks to have the same dish that Ego is served. Remy, who is still imprisoned, is set free by his father and brother. Fortunately, he returns to the restaurant to assist Linguini. When the chefs notice him returning, they attempt to kill him, but Linguini intervenes and protects Remy, confessing the truth to everyone. The chefs, stunned, leave, including Colette. Linguini retires to his office, convinced that Gusteau's case is hopeless. Django enters and admits that he was mistaken. Seeing Linguini stand up for Remy has changed his opinion of humans. Django enlists the entire rat colony's assistants, instructing them to prepare the food in accordance with Remy's instructions. Just then, a health inspector arrives and discovers the kitchen is infested with rats. Django leads a swarm of rats to the inspector, tying him up and locking him in the pantry. Before long, after a thorough cleaning in the kitchen's dishwasher, the rats form an intricate system under Remy's supervision and are preparing all the meals for the restaurant. Linguini puts on a pair of roller skates and begins serving the guests, knowing that someone will have to wait tables. Colette, having changed her mind, returns to the restaurant to assist Remy and Linguini. She inquires about Remy's plans for Ego. Remy chooses Ratatouille, an older-style recipe that is not traditionally up to Gusteau's standards. Colette calls it a peasant dish. The entree is quickly prepared and served to Anton Ego. Ego takes a bite of the ratatouille and is immediately transported back to his childhood, when his mother made the same dish to cheer him up after a bicycle accident. He's overcome with emotion over the dish. Skinner storms into the kitchen, only to be bound and thrown into the pantry alongside the health inspector. The fantastic meal warms Ego's heart, and he insists on thanking the chef, but he is told that he must wait until all other customers have left. Linguini, Colette, and Remy reveal the entire truth to Ego that evening. Following his departure from the restaurant, Ego writes a glowing review for Gusteau's, proclaiming the chef to be the finest in Paris, while failing to reveal the chef's true identity. Unfortunately, the luck does not last. The health inspector and Skinner are eventually released, and word spreads about the inner workings of the kitchen, leading to Gusteau's closure. Ego loses his job and a lot of credibility as a result of promoting a rat-infested restaurant. Remy, telling this story to his family and a few friends, states that Ego is now working as a small business investor. It seems that Ego, along with Colette, Linguini and Remy, has opened a bistro named La Ratatouille, where humans and rats, in a hidden, separate chamber, are both welcome, and Gusteau's legacy lives on.